Hello. Hi, everyone. It's Tuesday. It's just about 5, so I'm kind of doing it. Thanks for being here. I'm going to start getting through these headlines. Lots to talk about since last Wednesday. I'm sick, so my voice might go out. Hi. So just bear with me. Yes. So if I start to sound like Rod Stewart here in a minute, you will understand why. Okay, so let's get right into it. I've got a bunch of headlines for you guys, and in no particular order. Actually, I lied. They are in a particular order. I think I've discovered that I start putting the juicier things towards the end because a lot of people don't get my notifications and hop on here late, and then they'll write and be like, oh, did you go over this yet? And then by that time, I kind of tend to have gone over a bunch of things. So I'm going to put some of the bigger things at the end. Yesterday, though, was the second anniversary of the first Q drop, so that was really exciting. And it's incredible to think about how much my life has changed just in the last 2 years, and how much the world has changed in the last 2 years. And it's really incredible. So, excuse me, this next thing, well, let's see. I want to get into the finders, but I think I'm going to drop that to the end. I think we're going to do that one after everything else because there's a lot to go over there and I want to talk about that one the most. So I'm going to leave that one towards the end. But again, all of my links are down below. So if you want to go along with me and look at the links. This first one, this one is a subject, I know I've told you guys this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I think that it's something we all need to be paying attention to. It's related to some of the abuses within child protective services and, you know, how irresponsible our system is and how many children get lost and are unaccounted for or end up in worse situations than they were even taken from, or they are taken for illegitimate reasons or poor reasons or no reason. So this is an article that I came across. An Oregon mother that was targeted with a fake report to Child Protective Services due to her pro-life beliefs. So Heather Hobbs, who's a pro-life advocate, and she recently spoke at a Trump rally, was targeted with a CPS report that she says was politically motivated. So Hobbs went to OHSU Hospital in Portland for thyroid surgery, and while she was there, she had her family with her, including her 18-month-old baby, who was still nursing. And her oldest daughter started talking to her about, she said, "Mommy, I love you. I want to be a pro-life speaker too one day." And Heather said the nurse in the room was listening to this, and she turned to her. She said, quote, "Nurse C turned to me and said with an annoyed tone, 'So you're pro-life?' I smiled gently and said, 'I am now, but I wasn't always. I was raised in a more liberal atheist pro-choice home, but it wasn't until my first child that I had ever really contemplate my beliefs. She changed my heart, and every child after changed me a bit more. I believe abortion hurts women.' She said, for the rest of the day, the nurse was cold, rude, and pushed the medications quickly through my IV, which was very painful. And prior to the incident, she did it slowly. So it sounded like this woman was taking out her aggression on Heather. Then on August 30th, in a phone conversation with the employee of the hotel that her family was staying at while she was getting treatment at the hospital, she found out that there was a complaint filed against her with the CPS. And basically, long story short, this nurse made a CPS report about the woman because she was annoyed with her and didn't like her because she now found out that she was pro-Trump and was an advocate for pro-life. She called in a CPS making a complaint that she was nursing while she was on IV meds. Well, the doctor was there and actually ended up apologizing to her. The other nurses apologized to her also. The doctor wrote a note to CPS stating that it was their medical decision that was safe for her to breastfeed while she was on her IV medication. Anyway, nuts. crazy that that's the world that we live in, and so disgusting that somebody would treat another human being like that just because they don't align with their beliefs. Okay, next thing here, quick, Scott Israel. He's the Broward Sheriff, or was. Florida Senate votes to permanently oust Broward Sheriff Scott Israel. The Florida Senate on Wednesday voted to permanently oust suspended Broward Sheriff Scott Israel over office's response to the mass shooting that killed 17 at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018. The GOP-controlled state Senate voted 25-15 in favor of Israel's permanent removal. That is some good news. This next one is really weird. I just want you guys to take a look at it for yourself because yeah, it's just a weird one. So this one is called The Good Club. This is from the article. It's the most elite club in the world. Ordinary people need not apply. Indeed, there's no way to ask to join. You simply have to be very, very rich and very, very generous on a global scale. This is the Good Club, the name given to the tiny global elite of billionaire philanthropists who recently held their first and highly secretive meeting in the heart of New York City. So the names of some of the members are Bill Gates, George Soros, Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey, David Rockefeller, and Ted Turner. All told, its members are worth $125 billion. The meeting, called by Gates, Buffett, and Rockefeller, was held in response to the global economic downturn and the numerous health and environmental crises that are plaguing the globe. It was, in some ways, a summit to save the world. This article is so bizarre. I have 2 words for you. Puff piece. Jimmy, thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, I don't really think I have to say a whole lot about this. Read it for yourself. It's super bizarre. I don't know if this was actually, they're saying that, we were trying to have these secret meetings and then this got leaked and now suddenly people know about this, but I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it was leaked on purpose, if they're trying to make themselves, look good. But all I'm saying is those people together in one room is highly questionable to me. Okay. Priests in Colorado. They're saying 43 priests sexually abused at least 166 children in Colorado over the past 70 years, a recent investigation shows. And more than half of those children were abused after the state's 3 dioceses knew the priests were abusers, a state investigation found. On average, it took the diocese more than 19 years to restrict an abusive priest's authority after receiving an allegation that he had sexually abused children, and 7 abusive priests never faced any restrictions. So I'm glad these people are being outed now, and I find it reprehensible that it took so long. I recently heard somebody describing this as, everybody kind of, when you've got a system, when you've got an organization or something such as the church, people, they're not trying to, protect pedophiles on a global scale. They're trying to protect their organization, yada, yada. At this point, there's no excuse. And there are more cases of this than any of us care to even think about. So this is one of those, we all see a pattern here, and it ain't good. Hillary was recently on a Campaign HQ's podcast, and she said a few really bizarre things. One is, on it, she was accusing Tulsi Gabbard of being groomed by the Russians to run third party. The second was, she's talking about what happened in the 2016 election, and she's saying that she anticipates that what happened then is what's going to happen in the next election, and in her words, this is what happened. I think it's going to be the same as 2016. I'm going to show you these flashing videos that appear and then disappear, and they're on the dark web and nobody can find them, but you're going to see them and you're going to see that person doing these horrible things. What does that sound like? And if you are just a normal person in daily life who has never heard about any of these things, what the heck is she talking about, right? What do you think that normal people listening to that think that she is talking about? She gone cray. Okay, these next couple things I'm only going to touch on quickly just because the news is everywhere. You guys can look this up, but I did want to mention them. Obviously now the Russia probe has turned into a criminal investigation since last we spoke. Just a couple notes on that. Now that it is a criminal investigation, the Justice Department and Durham can now impanel grand juries, issue search warrants, and charge crimes. So things are ramping up. That is very exciting. The next thing is Lisa Page edited Flynn's 302s, another interesting revelation. General Lynn Flynn's lawyer, Sidney Powell, filed a motion on Thursday night revealing that General Flynn was indeed set up by the FBI with an ambush, damaging leaks, and altered 302 reports. In this article, it also talks about how it was also revealed that James Clapper was most likely the leaker of Flynn's phone call with Kislyak to WAPO's David Ignatius. So, yeah, bad people doing bad things. Speaking of bad people doing bad things, teacher convicted of distributing child sex abuse video. So I was confused because the headline of this says former Jacksonville high school teacher sentenced to more than 9 years for distributing child sexual abuse video over the internet. Well, I think the important thing here, and this is kind of in the article, but I think it was confusing based on that headline, is that this happened while he was a teacher at Terry Parker High School in Jacksonville. Jordan Frederick Schemmel, 38, Ormond Beach, sentenced to 9 years and 2 months in federal prison for distributing depictions of child sexual abuse over the internet. Gross. So, another one bites the dust. A cell phone tower at a California elementary school shut down after 8 children diagnosed with cancer. 8 children have been diagnosed with cancer at the same elementary school in Ripon, California, prompting parents' fears that a cell phone tower could be to blame. The affected students at Weston Elementary School in Ripon are all under the age of 10, each with different types of cancer: brain, kidney, liver, and lymphoma. Sprint, which owns the tower, has shut it down despite insisting the radio frequency levels are 100 times below the federal limit. The kids' mothers hired their own investigator, and they actually found much higher levels, although still within the limit. This article says the chances that 8 children randomly developed cancer in the same elementary school are virtually zero. Oh, there was something else interesting in that there's a Nestle factory nearby that they were saying. Corinne, thank you so much. Or is it Corinne? I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Yes, 5G is bad news. And they were saying that there's a Nestle plant close by that they were also suspicious of dumping, toxins into the soil for years and years. So anyway, they're saying that the chances of that happening, these young children in one elementary school, are virtually zero. And keep in mind that the government's safety levels for EMFs are based on experiments done by the cell phone companies themselves. So the people that are profiting from them, making money from them, are the ones that are regulating it or telling us what is safe and what isn't. So that seems like a conflict of interest. It also says, imagine what the cancer rates will be once the untested 5G towers are installed. Over the next 20 years, we'll probably see an exponential rise in childhood cancers due to EMF exposure from living in homes filled with cellular devices. But because people can't live without these devices, they will gladly believe that something else is to blame when their children are diagnosed with cancer. I remember, it's not going to be a very good story because I can't remember the exact number, and obviously that's important when you're talking about statistics. But we do have a family friend who was diagnosed with MS, and she went to a private high school that had a very, very tiny amount of, it was a very small school. And so I think her graduating class had something like 19 people or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was a very small amount. And there were like at least 7 people in her high school that all were diagnosed with MS. So that was very interesting. It was like, was that something environmental? They don't talk about MS being something that can come from the environment. So, but obviously once you have a very high concentration of something like that in one area, it deserves to be looked at and to be understood better, because with medicine, there are a lot of things that we can say, but it's almost impossible to know what isn't possible. We know some things are possible, and that's easy to know because you've got the evidence, but you don't, it's really hard for them to say what isn't possible, and sometimes when the data doesn't go along with what they're trying to tell us, it gets brushed under the rug. Speaking of, this is actually pretty good news. First Vaccine-Autism Court Award. So the first family to receive $1.5 million, over $1.5 million in the first ever Vaccine-Autism Court Award. CBS News has learned that the family of Hannah Poling will receive more than $1.5 million for her life care, lost earnings, and pain and suffering for the first year alone. In addition to the first year, the family will receive more than $500,000 per year to pay for Hannah's care. Those familiar with the case believe the compensation could easily amount to $20 million over the child's lifetime. It gives a little bit of the background of this little girl's story. She was a healthy, happy baby, and then in July of 2000, when she was 18 months, she was vaccinated against 9 diseases in one doctor's visit. Measles, mumps, I'm going to screw some of these up. Measles, mumps, rubella, polio, varicella, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, and Haemophilus influenza. After receiving those vaccinations, her health declined rapidly. She developed high fevers, stopped eating, didn't respond when spoken to, and began showing signs of autism and having screaming fits. In 2002, Hannah's parents filed an autism claim in the federal vaccine court. 5 years later, the government settled the case before trial and had it sealed. So basically what the government is saying is that the vaccines aggravated an unknown mitochondrial disorder Hannah had, which didn't cause her autism, but resulted in it. But how many other children have this secret hidden mitochondrial disorder and are at risk for something like this to happen? From the article, then director of the Center for Disease Control, Julie Gerberding, who is now president of Merck Vaccinations, stated, quote, "The government has made absolutely no statement indicating that vaccines are a cause of autism. This does not represent anything other than a very specific situation and a very sad situation as far as the family of the affected child." So the Center for Disease Control, the person who is tasked with, making sure that things are safe, is now the president of the company that is profiting from these vaccinations. So again, another conflict of interest in my mind. This next one, British PSYOPs officer, Twitter exec. Media ignores unmasking of Twitter executive as British PSYOPs officer. A recent investigation from independent news outlet Middle East Eye uncovered that a senior Twitter executive is in fact an officer of the British Army's 77th Brigade, a unit dedicated to psychological operations, PSYOPs, propaganda, and online warfare. The British Ministry of Defense describes PSYOPs as a way of getting, quote, the enemy or other target audience to think and act in a way in which will be to our advantage. So as we recall from my media video about Obama repealing the Smith-Mundt Act and making it legal to propagandize our own citizens here within the United States. And now we have a guy who is an expert in just that working at Twitter. Another thing that I linked below is just a really awesome Benghazi thread that I came across, and I think it's really important for all of us to be well versed on Benghazi, what happened there, and have a good understanding of it. I came across this thread, and so I thought I would link it below and share it with you guys. I highly recommend reading it, even if you already know about Benghazi. There's some really interesting information in that. And how it kind of leads back to HRC. Obviously, we know how connected she is with it, and also how it leads back to an overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. And I had come across something else that I didn't link here, but I'm going to share it next time because I needed to figure out how to do that. It was actually something that I found on Reddit. That was a very interesting history of the ousting of Muammar Gaddafi, why that was so necessary to these elite people, why they needed to do that, what that operation was about, and how it connects to all of this. So I'm going to share that with you guys next time. I also linked below a really awesome Epstein graph that's interactive, and I don't know who made it, but props to whoever did, because it's really cool and intricate, and you can play around with that. Covington, the judge reopens the Covington Catholic teens' $250 million lawsuit against the Washington Post. So the federal judge in Kentucky on Monday partially reopened Covington's Catholic high school student Sandman's $250 million defamation lawsuit against the Washington Post, which is the same judge that dismissed it in July. We all remember what happened with that kid. Those videos went viral, including mostly the videos that didn't show the entire incident, and they were painting him out to have gotten in that man's face. Incomplete video clips posted online prompted widespread accusation that Sandman was a racist who had approached Phillips, that was the man with the drum, and mocked him. The Diocese of Covington Catholic High School quickly condemned Sandman's behavior and vowed discipline. The lawsuit had also claimed the Post falsely labeled Sandman as a racist by publishing articles that, quote, falsely accused Nicholas of, quote, accosting Phillips by suddenly swarming him in a threatening and physically intimidating manner, taunting and dispersing indigenous crowd, and chanting, build the wall, Trump 2020, and go back to Africa, which never happened. Now that we see the videos of the entire encounter, but the judge ruled that the newspaper used language that was, quote, loose and figurative and rhetorical hyperbole, which is protected by the First Amendment. So they didn't get in trouble by doing that. That is sick. Within days, though, more complete footage of the day showed several members of the Black Hebrew Israelites, a fringe religious group, heckling Sandman and his classmates with homophobic and racist language. So we'll see what happens with that. I would like to see that kid win that lawsuit. I just spilled all over myself, by the way. Okay, so here's something, and I haven't been online much today, so maybe I'm even missing some, but we have a list from just like the last week or so of, I think, at least 5 Democratic Congress people's deaths. Maybe one of them in here is a senator, but I just thought this was very interesting, and Q always tells us to watch for, you know, high-profile deaths and things such as this. So we all know about Elijah Cummings. That happened last week. He had he was having some trouble with the IRS accusing him of his wife, Maya Rockeymoore, of potentially using a charity to derive, quote, illegal private benefit for the couple, according to the Washington Examiner. Cummings is the chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. His wife, Maya Rockeymoore, 48, is the chairman of the Maryland Democratic Party and briefly ran the state's gubernatorial race last year. The couple married in 2008. Cummings was once heavily in debt, in part due to hefty child support payments to his first wife and 2 other women he had children with. But his financial situation has improved considerably over the past decade. So I think we covered that a few weeks ago. I remember we got into the stuff with Elijah Cummings' wife and talking about how she may be in trouble for stuff like that. Anyway, now he is no longer with us, and they had what was it called? They had a funeral for him or whatever it was, and it was like highly political. And then we've got John Conyers. He resigned in 2017 after allegations of sexual harassment and verbal abuse of employees and misuse of taxpayer funds to cover up those claims. His wife, Monica, again, a wife in trouble, a former Detroit City Councilwoman, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for bribery after a federal judge refused to set aside her guilty plea during a hearing over evidence of other payoffs. And we actually had a Q drop that pointed to John Conyers. Q dropped 265 on December 5th, 2017 after he had resigned. And the Q drop says, bye-bye, Johnny, update the list, which probably means update the list of resignations. Watch the news, war, Q. So he was somebody we were watching, and now he's gone. Interesting. Kay Hagan also died unexpectedly. I was reading a little bit about her story. She actually had something called, I'm going to say this completely wrong, Powassan virus. It's a disease that's carried by, I almost said termites, ticks, who get it from rodents, I guess. And so it did sound like her health was in decline, and because of this. But also they were saying that she was not expected to die from it. So, because they were saying she died unexpectedly. So who knows if this has any connection whatsoever. We had John Walker died. He was a state legislator, civil rights attorney. He was serving his 5th term in the Arkansas House at the time of his death. And then we had the death of Tom D'Alessandro III. He was the former mayor of Baltimore and Nancy Pelosi's brother. And he died on October 20th. Now we have some witches to get to. The resistance witches. I just thought this was goofy. Thousands of witches to cast massive spell on Trump and his supporters at 1 minute before the stroke of midnight Eastern time on October 25th. Thousands of self-identified witches plan to simultaneously conduct a ritual meant to, quote, bind President Trump and all those who abet him. The practice has been taking place monthly since Trump's inauguration, notes Michael Snyder on his End of the American Dream blog. But with Halloween approaching and impeachment inquiry underway, it's getting renewed media attention. The practitioners explained that unlike a curse or a hex, a binding spell is not meant to cause harm. They believe that they're doing good. Rather, writes Snyder, the witches hope to prevent President Trump from doing harm to the United States by his actions, and so they actually believe they are doing something positive for the country. But a closer examination, quote, reveals some very disturbing details, as the witches are instructed to call on demons of the infernal realms for help in binding Trump and his allies. What could go wrong? Vox reported as many as 13,000 witchcraft practitioners are involved in the anti-Trump movement. There you have it, folks. Spooky dooky. Tennessee human trafficking bust. Law enforcement. I had a friend write to me today, and they were like, listen, just, based on your opinion, is there anything going on with all of these massive drug busts that I'm seeing lately? And I was like, oh, but there is. And also keep your eye out for human trafficking busts, because we're getting a lot of those too, and they are all related. And we've got another one in Tennessee. Law enforcement say that 16 men have been arrested following the bust, which targeted human trafficking in Rutherford County. So that's great. So probably one of the biggest pieces of news, or maybe the biggest piece of news this week, is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead, leader of ISIS. And I don't have to tell you guys about that. It has been everywhere. There was a really interesting speech given by the president that if you haven't seen yet, I would highly recommend. We're going to get into that in a minute and some of the things that he said. One of the things that was kind of crazy after this, Washington Post, a couple hours after Trump made his announcement, they put out an article about Baghdadi, and they called him an austere religious scholar. And then they, within a couple hours, because due to backlash, obviously, they changed the headline to radical something or other. But if you read the article still read the same. It was still that same vein of making him out to be almost like they were revering him and talking about this man it was very strange. It was a very strange way to handle the leader of ISIS and somebody that has done despicable things, slaughter of people, rape, slavery of people. He blew himself up after he was chased by some dogs. That part is funny, but the part that is not funny at all is that he took 3 of his children with him and killed them as well. So, what a coward. What an absolute piece of crap. So, you know, even if he had lived his life impeccably up until that moment, the fact that he did that at his death means he should not be revered. He should not have articles written about him that sound like they're giving, you know, an obituary, or, you know, like they're standing up at his funeral and saying some kind words about him. It was all very weird. So afterwards, there was a picture that came out that was supposedly from the Situation Room of Trump and, you know, the generals and things like that. And so I linked this below because I think this is a very important thing for us to all take notice of. There's this guy named Pete Souza, and I don't really know who he is. I think I looked on his Twitter and it said he was like a freelance photographer or something. He's got over 264,000 Twitter followers, and he's also verified. He's got the blue skid mark is what I call it. So he is solely responsible for spreading the rumor that Trump was golfing during the raid. And I have seen this spread everywhere. It literally can all be traced back to this one dude and his tweet. So he put up a tweet and saying that the timestamp, the timestamp from the metadata of the photograph from the Situation Room shows that that it was taken at this particular time, and that the raid didn't go down until this particular time, so the photo had obviously been staged. Well, he was incorrect in that. I don't remember which one was wrong. I think he had the time of the raid wrong. So instead of deleting his tweet, he put out a new tweet, which everybody knows in this world of things going viral, that new tweet is not going to get as much recognition. It's better, if you really want to correct yourself, to delete the old tweet and then put up a new tweet and be like, look, I messed up. This is what really happened. So that first initial tweet with the wrong information that made Trump out to be playing golf during the raid received 50, last time I checked, over 58,000 likes and over 21,000 retweets. The new tweet, in which he corrected himself, received only 2,500 likes and barely 1,000 retweets. So that original tweet is still up. It's still getting retweeted. It's still getting liked. It's still getting shared. You still have people all around the world that are sharing this information, and I think that it is a good lesson for all of us in how these people operate. So I wanted to get into what Trump was saying when he was describing the raid and what happened to Baghdadi. He used the word dog, I don't even know how many times. He used the word dog, he used the word puppies, he used the word canine, not only in describing the dogs that were actually going after him, but he said that he died like a dog and that he was whimpering, and there were just a lot of something about being a sick puppy. There were just a lot of references to dogs, which I found very interesting because of the connection to John McCain. So Trump puts out a tweet of a photo of the supposed dog that tracked down Baghdadi. And it says, you know, here's the picture of the dog, but his name is not yet declassified, or her name. It was actually a girl, I think. Oh, my foot's asleep. We've reached that portion of the night. So it's a dog with no name. Well, that was interesting to me because who did we used to call no name? John McCain. And John McCain has also been photographed with Baghdadi several times. I actually put a link below to one of the pictures. There's a tweet that I came across today, so I just thought I'd throw it in there. But there are a few pictures that were circulating of John McCain with Baghdadi. So there's a connection there between the two men. The dog has no name. We call McCain no name. Q has also posted stuff about every dog has its day. There was a Q drop that said, it was one of the Anons posted saying, please do not let No Name off the hook. He's a disgrace to veterans across this great country and needs to be held accountable. Q replied saying, think SC vote to confirm, coming, No Name action. Every dog has its day. Enjoy the show. This next thing is my favorite. It is my favorite Q proof. And I'll tell you why in a second. But on July 25th at 4:28 p.m., Q post, quote, "no name returning to headlines," okay? So that's July 25th at 4:28 p.m. Exactly 1 month later, to the minute, is when John McCain dies. His reported time of death was 4:28 p.m. 4:28 p.m. On August 25th. So exactly 1 month later, to the minute of when Q posted that. So it's my favorite Q proof for two reasons. One is that it proves Q's legitimate, because how on earth would they know that? Unless they had some kinds of connections. Number two, it also proves, I think, that McCain did not die of cancer like they tried to tell us. Because even if you knew ballpark that this person is on their way out, they're in hospice or whatever, you are not going to be able to predict to the minute when this person is going to die. So that was one of my favorite Q proofs. Again, so then also the following day, the day they were making the announcement of John McCain's death, was National Dog Day. And there have been a lot of strange tweets about dogs. I know that we've covered that before. We've talked about that before on this with people, I think even Hillary Clinton, I don't know. There were some congressmen that were tweeting about dogs. There was just weird stuff. And we've talked about strange comms about corn and owls and all kinds of weird stuff. So there's definitely something to that, I think. This last thing, I'm just going to check in with you guys. Hi, guys. Before we get into the finders. I wish they would start tweeting more about donkeys. Oh yeah, No Name's wife is wearing a boot now. Yeah, I saw that too. John McCain's wife is now wearing the famous boot that we have seen on, who have we seen it? John McCain, Hillary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, lots of people with this boot, and the speculation is that they are wearing it because they've been arrested and they're wearing the ankle monitor and they use that to cover it up. In fact, John McCain, funny enough, was seen with the boot on one foot one day and then the other foot another day. So that's very interesting. And so now John McCain's wife is walking around with the boot. Okay, so now I want to get into the last thing, which is kind of a big thing, is the finders. So the other day on the FBI Twitter account, they dropped a link to a PDF about this file with like over 320 something pages on the finders. So I've been kind of digging through that a little bit, but I'm still unpacking it because it's a lot and there are a ton of connections. So I'm only going to touch upon this with what I can say so far, but I definitely am going to dig more into this. But I also want to get into kind of what the finders are connected to, because it's extraordinary. Basically, in a nutshell, the finders are a multi-generational government program used to entrap politicians, diplomats, corporate officials, and police officers. They raised children as animals and made them perform ritual murder of goats. When rescued by police, the children did not recognize things such as telephones, TV, hot water, staplers, electricity, or toilets. The CIA took over the case and closed it because it was, quote, an internal matter. So essentially what happened was Tallahassee, was it Tallahassee? No, yeah, it was Tallahassee. I'm really sorry, guys. My voice is totally going. So that Tallahassee Police Department was called out to a park because there were two well-dressed men there with 6 children and a blue van. And the children looked disheveled and dirty and unkempt, as they said. I believe it's unkempt, but they said unkept in the article. But anyway, when the police were questioning these men, the men couldn't really tell them who the children's parents were. They said the children were being weaned from their mothers, that they were on their way to Mexico to take these children to a school for brilliant children or something like that. It was just a strange situation. So the men got arrested, the children got taken in and questioned, and they ended up finding out that the children were from DC. So they called the police department in DC And DC already knew about the finders. So in this van that the men had, they found a bunch of floppy disks. They found a computer that, I mean, keep in mind, this is 1987? It was a computer that could plug into a telephone and basically connect to a different computer. So that was like the kind of technology that they had then. But anyway, the Tallahassee PD called the police department in Washington, D.C., find out that they already know about the finders. They already have been investigating them. And it just leads into this huge thing. These children, they found documents of how these children, how they procure these children. Like there were documents telling these cult members how to impregnate the women of the group, and how to buy children, how to kidnap them. There were documents discovered or emails actually, I think, something like that. Like the first version of email, I forgot what it was called. Anyway, they found correspondence where they were trying to procure children from Hong Kong, and they were going through the U.S. Embassy there to get these children. And basically, you know, what these police were finding was this large network of, you know, human trafficking, pedophilia. They found naked images of the children. When the children were examined, they showed signs of sex abuse. One of the little boys had, I don't even want to go into it, but an obvious symptom of being raped. One of the little girls also showed signs of being raped. The oldest little girl, which when I was reading this, you know, they don't really say the children's ages, but then you find pictures of these children when they got them, and the oldest little girl looks like she's maybe about 6. And then the other kids look like they're 3, 4, and 5. It's really bad. My screen just turned green. That was really weird. So anyway, you had videos of the children performing like sacrifices, killing a goat and skinning it, and the men around them wearing these white robes. It looked like satanic ritual, you know, like a satanic ritual. And a bunch of weird stuff. The men that were taken into custody had different passports, and when the State Department got hold of it, they said, oh no, all travel was within the law and no action needs to be taken. But the travel included travel within Moscow, North Korea, and North Vietnam from the late 50s to the early 70s, when the U.S. was engaged in conflict in those areas. So then you've got connections to the CIA. In this document drop that just came out that I was going through, there are documents about McMartin Preschool and the photographs and notes and diagrams of a tunnel system underneath that preschool. So I looked into that preschool. I actually put a Wikipedia. Unfortunately, it was just like quickly to just have something on here. About what happened at the McMartin Preschool accusations. These accusations came out from this mother in 1983, and then there were investigations until 1987, and then a trial happened from 87 to 90. Unfortunately, nothing happened, but it was basically the same thing. These children were saying that they had been sexually abused, that they were being used for satanic rituals. It all got blown into this. They were saying these children were crazy, and it was alleged that in addition to having been sexually abused, they saw witches fly, traveled in a hot air balloon, and were taken through tunnels. Well, now we know those tunnels existed, even though the Wikipedia page still says, quote, several excavations turned up evidence of old buildings on the site and other debris from before the school was built, but no evidence of any secret chambers or tunnels was found. Well, I don't know. Thank God for the Freedom of Information Act, because now we can see some of these things. Imagine all of the things that have gotten buried that we could potentially uncover. And so I'm not clear yet on the connection between this McMartin Preschool, which I believe was in Manhattan Beach, California, and the finders, other than it was a, you know, countrywide, possibly global operation. But it also links back to the Franklin scandal, which I told you is one of the books I'm reading. I really recommend you read that book, especially since we're getting all of this information. All of these things are starting to connect. The Johnny Gosch disappearance in 1982, that has some crossover because I actually just watched the documentary Who Took Johnny yesterday. I know that that documentary has been out for a long time. I've been hearing about it for a long time. I had even heard what was in it, but I never watched it myself. And it used to be on Netflix, but it is no longer on Netflix. So I had to rent it from something. I don't even remember. I really recommend you watch that documentary. And Johnny Gosch was a kid that was 12 years old, disappeared on his paper route in 1982. And he was the first kid to ever be put on a milk carton when he was missing. And his mother had this huge struggle trying to get the police to look for her son. It's crazy, but she kept hitting all these dead ends. No, they wouldn't even cooperate with her. They didn't even want to call him a missing person. They kept saying he ran away, even though he left his dog and his newspaper and his wagon like in the middle of the road. And then you had a guy came out years later, and it was a guy that was in prison for, I think, pedophilia, or at least sex abuse. And he admitted to being one of the people that kidnapped Johnny and used chloroform to get him in the back seat, and that he was one of these kids that grew up in this ring, and, he was abused himself, and he was forced to do these things, and he was able to describe in great detail how this operates. He was able to give Johnny's mother details about certain birthmarks and scars and things about her kid that nobody knew, and he was able to give a lot of information. And he even took them to a house where he was kept with some other children, and he's like, yeah, there's this place that you pull it out, and there's a place underneath that they kept the children underneath the house, and they go to the house, and sure enough, this grate swings open, and there's a massive thing underneath the house where the children can be dropped in, and a ladder to go back up, and really crazy. Again, I want to unpack more of this and get into it, but I think it's going to take a lot of us to dig through all of this stuff and make all of these connections. And I do think it's interesting why this drop would happen right now. The timing of it seems really interesting to me. And, after these things have been buried for so long. There was also a documentary called Conspiracy of Silence that was originally scheduled to air May of 1994 on the Discovery Channel. But it was yanked at the last minute due to formidable pressure applied by top politicians. Some very powerful people do not want you to watch this documentary. I believe you can find that documentary somewhere online. I haven't found it yet, but I haven't really looked very hard because I've been looking at other stuff. I forgot to get my book, but I actually got the book of Johnny Gosch's story. It is called... I forgot what it's called. I could go grab it. Maybe somebody knows. But the documentary is called Who Took Johnny. Thank you, Paul from Montana. I hope you can try to have these on Tuesdays, but we'll watch whenever you can make the time. Thanks for speaking out. Thank you so much, Paul. So the interesting thing is, the Franklin scandal was happening in Nebraska. That was 1989. You've got these same stories of kids talking about prominent figures within the community and even outside the community that were abusing them and, making them perform these rituals and even like kill animals or kill babies or, all of these things. And instead of the investigations, a proper investigation happening, you had the kids getting silenced. They actually went after them for perjury. And you've got kids all over. I mean, I've met people that have had their own experiences with things like this. These kids did not all just coordinate one day, especially in the 80s, the early 80s, and decide that they were all going to be telling these same stories. We still have some of this stuff coming out. I put another link below to, I know I've mentioned these two kids before, Alisa and Gabriel. It's the UK Hampstead Christchurch SRA cover-up is what they call it. You can find some stuff about it on YouTube. Unfortunately, the first thing that you find is a BBC piece with the father saying that he was unfairly, that it wasn't true, basically. But the first video I ever saw of Alisa and Gabriel, they find the Scotland Yard police and they start giving him the account of what they've been through, and they basically the same thing. They talk about how their father and their the priests and the teachers at their school molest them. They have sex with them. They're able to describe tattoos that the teachers have on their inner thighs. They talk about how they are forced to kill babies and drink the blood. They talk about how their dad makes them do that, and it was this whole thing. And I watched even the investigations, not the investigations, when they were interviewing these kids, and you watch the interviewer just completely gloss over what these kids are saying about what their father is up to, and they're really harping on the mother and how the mother and the mother's boyfriend make soup out of hemp. And the investigator, or whoever it is talking to the child, keeps going, yeah, okay, yeah, you killed babies, but go back to the hemp soup. So do they make it with actual hemp? It's crazy. And so that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. I have gone through that a long time ago. But again, here you have two other children giving the same account of these same kinds of things. And do we really believe that all of these children are making these things up? Oh, we've got trolls. That sounds fun. I haven't even looked at, this is like the first time I've seen the chat. So, yeah, it is really sad. But I have a link to the Finder's Drop, hemp is the problem here, exactly. To go through, I still want to go through it. Several McMartin pre-K kids had chlamydia. Oh my gosh, I didn't hear that yet. Yeah, the McMartin thing was new to me. I had never heard about that before until I started going through this, and then I looked up the McMartin tunnels, and I was like, oh, where is the McMartin preschool? I was like, is that in Tallahassee or is that in DC? And then that took me to the Wikipedia page about this scandal that happened at the McMartin Elementary School, where these kids are talking about being abused in California, and it talks about tunnels under the school. So I have to assume that that it's, that's what it is. There's also a really strange part in the documents about Tupac. It's weird. There's a lot, and I haven't been through every bit of it yet. So the goal is to go through that. I finished the documentary. I have the 2 books. I want to put the 2 books together, and the more that we can connect the dots between all of these things, the better. But I think that even looking at these things just a little bit, it becomes really clear kind of what's going on. Also, NSA high-up Michael Aquino from the Satan Church thing, Paul Bonacci, allegedly talked about him too. Paul Bonacci, or Bonacci, Paul Bonacci was the kid that came forward. He was the one that was in prison that came forward and said that he was there when Johnny Gosch was kidnapped, and he was the one that had to chloroform him in the back of the car. It's so hard to believe. It is hard to believe. It really is hard to believe, and we have to get past these. It is a protective thing, I think, that our brains will not accept these terrible thoughts. So it makes a lot of sense. And again, nobody is talking about going out with our pitchforks and like seeking vigilante justice. The entire point here is that all of this stuff needs to be brought into the light. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So it does appear that things had been buried in the past, that basically what happened with the Finders thing was that the CIA said that it was an internal manner and they closed the investigation. And so that ain't good. I think it's important to get some sunlight on these things. And then if it ends up being that it's all just a big coincidence and none of this is connected, I'm sure we would all prefer that, right? I would. But the important thing is to actually know. Sorry if it's frozen. 13th floor helps explain this virtual reality and training environment for consciousness that we are in now. I missed what that's about. The CIA is an internal matter, and we need not to deal with it once and for all. The entire crux, the entire purpose of the CIA in itself is questionable. You've got a piece of the government that has unlimited funds and nobody to look over it, and not even the president to see what these people are actually up to. And that's sketchy. And it was brought about to, for our own good, because there are just some things that we can't know about. It's for our own safety, guys. Well, I don't want the CIA or any government entity to be my mommy or daddy and tell me what I can or can't handle. Because that's what even JFK was talking about, where the very word, whatever it was, I'm going to screw it up, but the very thought of secrecy is repugnant. I mean, you don't have to if you're doing things that are good, you don't have to be secret about it. And so the fact that you allow these people to operate with such secrecy behind such protection that nobody can even know what they are doing, you get one corrupt person in there and then it just spreads, and of course it's gonna be a breeding ground for these terrible things. Sorry guys if you're having trouble with it freezing. Alan Dulles had former ambassador to Switzerland, trying to impress Kate. I am impressed. Young crushed ginger, hot mineral water, unpasteurized local natural honey, and be prepared to never get a cold again. I know, like, it dropped below 90 degrees where I live, so naturally I have a cold. Clowns in America. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for you guys. Q is not back yet. 8 Coon, as far as I know, is not yet up. Oh, I had a funny thing. Actually, I already tweeted about it and posted on my Instagram, but just because it's one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. So the other day, I thought of a meme, and I made, actually what happened was, I thought of a meme, and I made a really, really crappy meme, because that's all I can do, is make crappy memes. I sent it to Rob, who's on here, and he made a beautiful meme. He's like, no, no. So he made the meme beautiful. Then I tweeted it, and then I saw it spreading, and so I was like getting really happy, and I was showing it to Rob. I was like, look, people like the meme. So then I see this morning, I guess it happened last night, but I didn't see it till this morning, Don Jr. tweeted, not our meme, it was the same thing. Somebody had obviously like seen it and made their own version of it. I don't really know why, but it was like better than the original version that I made, but it was not the beautiful version that Rob made. And so, anyway, and he tweeted that. So I was like, that's so cool. Echinacea drops. I hate the taste of echinacea. I'm like, I can get on board with all of the like essential oils and things like that, but for some reason echinacea just, I don't like it. I gotta get over it, I know that it's good for you. I laugh at funny things. Oh yeah, what was that from? Oh, that was Ben the other day. That was funny. I miss all the great 8chan memes too. I used to make memes on 8chan and like send them out, and then I thought about it today. I was like, it's so lame of me to go out and be like, I made this. I had to like claim it, but I was whatever. I already tweeted it. The meme was, it was a picture of Baghdadi, and his beard is grown out, and it's like brown from here down and then gray from here up. And so I actually did take colloidal. I forgot I had it, and then I took some. I took the silver today. Thank you for reminding me. It was like in the back of my medicine cabinet. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably do this. Anyway, so it was just like, you know, you could see in the delineation of his beard when Trump took office, because obviously there's been a very different treatment of him. He was released under the Obama administration, and then he is killed under the Trump administration. So, yeah, basically just making a joke that, like, the panic, because you know how stress can discolor your hair. You take the color out of your hair. And yeah, that was it. That was my clever meme. But anyway, yeah. That was a highlight for me. Felt good. Felt real good, guys. Jordan Sather mentioned in Vice article this morning. Oh, I didn't know that. What was that about, Paul? Baghdadi sounds like a rap name. You don't have time to dye your beard when you're on the run. Ain't that the truth? Couldn't afford beard color anymore. Yeah, it was obvious that it had been dyed. And actually somebody had commented telling me something. There was some reason that they actually dyed their beards red, because it wasn't really brown, it was red. It was some kind of symbolic thing, but I already forgot what it was. I am from Cali and on a business trip to Georgia, and had so many people that are awake just kind of openly talking to me about this stuff. It's wild. Oh, that's really interesting. I love to hear that. What are my symptoms? Really just, I had a sore throat and a fever the other day and runny nose, and now my voice is gone. But I lose my voice very, very easily. I've had a couple surgeries on my vocal cords, actually, so they're not in the best shape. Trump says, who's your Baghdadi? Because Mohammed dyed his beard red. Interesting. Blood red beard. I don't know. Oh, it was a hit piece on Jordan. That's interesting. That sucks. / cool for him, whatever. Don't read what they write about you, just measure it in inches. Right, Kate. Measure it in inches. Need to be taken out back and shot. Orga Max. You guys are so cool. You're my new doctor. Buffalo. Jaeger German cough syrup. Nope. Can't do it. What else? Anything else interesting happened today that, because I missed anything that really happened today. Jordan gets so many hit pieces, it's ridiculous. Yeah, interesting. Well, Jordan really puts himself out there. You know, a lot of the rest of us are really careful with what we do and say, and Jordan just kind of goes there, so he kind of is an easy target, but it's important what he's doing. And so, again, I kind of feel like those hit pieces end up biting the people that write them in the butt, because I do think that it has more of a residual effect of people finding this information rather than, you know, yes, of course there are going to be those people out there with the attitude like that instantly judge and are just going to believe whatever Vice says. But some people are going to look at that and check it out and be like, oh, huh. And everybody's their own human being. Maybe they're going to see it and actually find some truth and then stick around. So, whatever. Can't believe people were booing Trump at a World Series game. He deserves so much more love and respect for what he's doing. Hopefully soon more people will see the truth. On my Twitter, I retweeted a video that I think was retweeted by Incarnated ET, and I don't know how far down it is. It was within the last couple days, so it's not that far. I do tweet a lot, so sorry about that. But it shows the video from a different angle. It really seems like it's only just like one pocketed area of the people that are booing and everybody else was cheering. And so it was a different perspective of that. And you know, I've also kind of noticed that in the coverage of Trump rallies. I've been there myself and seen what was going on, and then seen the coverage and been like, it's almost like they are going and looking in the crowd for the person that's yawning or like falling asleep, which makes sense considering people show up at 9 a.m. and are standing around and don't eat or drink or pee for that long, and people are tired. But, you know, the rest of the crowd is like, there are thousands of people that are super energized and paying attention, and I feel like they do that on purpose to shy away from any coverage that's going to make him look like people care. Yeah, I found that boo clip odd also. Oh, God. Didn't his tweet say the audio was possibly enhanced too? I mean, that wouldn't be hard to do, would it? I could see that. What are y'all gonna be for Halloween? I'm not dressing up. I don't think I haven't dressed up in a very long time. I used to love Halloween. I'm just too old. But now I have a kid to dress up. He gets about 6 costumes per Halloween, so there's that. But I do love watching people dress up. But I'm getting to the point now where I look around at Halloween stuff and I was like, what are we doing? What is this? Like, people talking about haunted houses and stuff like that. I'm like, why do we want to scare our kids? Why do we want to be scared ourselves? Like, I don't know. It's weird. I have a different feeling on Halloween now. But I still do like costumes because I like watching people be creative, and I've seen some funny costumes in my life that I will never forget. But you're gonna be David Wilsocks. You'll be the guy handing out candy. That's my favorite. Rita Skeeter. We're doing a Harry Potter at work, and I'm 61 years young. That's really cute. A shadow god. Samhain. Isn't the UN going broke tomorrow? Tomorrow? I didn't know that was tomorrow. What could that possibly bring for America? Hopefully that would bring a lot of good for the entire world. I think that's actually a good thing. So we'll see. You're gonna be Corn Pop, the elusive Corn Pop. Glenda the Good Witch. Oh, that's really cute. I bet that would be a really fun costume. Arizona official was indicted on selling babies for adoption. We did go over that in, I think, 2 lives ago. I've got links to that. I know that he was just recently, so he was indicted first, and what was the news that just came out about that? He basically was, he was taken down from his position, but we already knew that he had been indicted. But yeah, big connections there. We don't celebrate Halloween anymore. Yeah, I kind of feel, I didn't have a little kid. I don't think, I think the older I get, the less into Halloween I get, and the more into Christmas and Thanksgiving. What's wrong with AZ, Kate? Need to clean up your backyard. Well, a couple things. We had McCain. We are a border state, so we've had a lot of secret corruption here, and I think Arizona has been kind of low key one of the worst states. In fact, when we look at the list of sealed cases in the country, I haven't actually looked at them in a few months, but heavily condensed in Arizona. There are some states that have like 12. And Arizona has a ton, you know, obviously New York and California, the usual suspects, but I was surprised to see, surprised / not really surprised to see Arizona was one of the highest. Yeah, I like Thanksgiving too because I like to cook. Ouch. No name, McStain. I celebrate Halloween with a cool t-shirt typically. My friend the other day was dressed up like a dad, and it was a really great costume. I do like people that just like really go for it with costumes. I think it's fun. Take all the,
Oh my gosh, the other day for the first time ever, I watched, what did I watch? The one with, I'm the worst, you guys. Who's the girl from Sex and the City? And Bette Midler, where they're witches. What is that movie called? Yeah, Sarah Jessica Parker. Thank you. What's the name of the movie? Anyway, it was screwed up. It was really screwed up. Yeah, we'll turn this into a cooking show. Hocus Pocus. Thank you. Yeah, I watched Hocus Pocus the other day. It was on TV, and I was just like, oh, I've never seen this. And it was right in the beginning of the movie. So I was like, I'll take a look at this. Whoa, dude. Wow. Yeah. I did not like it. Captain America went in the Walmart, the bathroom the other day, and he did not wash his hands. Disease cannot exist in an oxygen-dense environment, just like hate cannot exist. Thank you for reminding me. In love and breathing exercises are the key to awakening, and ozone has been documented to increase. Uh-oh, it jumped. I lost you. But thank you. You reminded me of something. There's a link below. It says health video. It is something. It's a topic that I'm like dying to talk about. I'm like that meme of the kid sitting at the desk where he's got the veins popping out of his forehead because I want to talk about it so bad. But it is one of those things that is heavily censored by our friends here. So I don't even want to say it, what it's really about, but I recommend you go click on that link and watch that video, the health video. But I will warn you that there are some images in there where they show people with like certain diseases and stuff of the skin or like spider bites that have gone crazy that are really gross. So if you're squeamish like me, watch with one eye open. And you can kind of skip over those. But yeah, it's a topic that I've researched a little bit. Some people talk about it that we know, and they always get censored for it. So I don't even want to talk about it because I don't want to give them another reason to take me down. But go check that out, the health video. Am I from Buffalo, New York? No, I'm not. You know, their football team is just so good and never loses. So, you know, I couldn't resist. Just kidding. My tattoo. Here's my tattoo. Amazing Polly is the best analyst on YouTube. I would say, yeah, I think she's one of the best I've seen. I've watched a lot of her videos at this point, and I think she's really great, really in depth, and smart as a whip. And yeah, she's cool. Thanks. Thank you. Liz Crokin has pics with celebs. Yeah, that doesn't really mean anything. I've got some pics with some knuckleheads. You know, she lives in LA, or I think Orange County. That's not hard to be in, you know, the same circles as some people, and it doesn't mean anything, you know. I know a lot of people look at those pictures of her with celebrities and they're like, oh, well, what is she connected to? I don't think that necessarily means that you are connected to anything. Yep, Kate sounds sick. Kate, that's because Kate is sick. Love Tiffany Fitzhenry. Yeah, she's great. Tracy Beans, absolutely, and Tiffany Fitzhenry. Yeah, those are some kick-ass women. Cancers die when exposed to high levels of oxygen. That is very true. Our healthy cells love oxygen. When somebody has cancer and they go in for chemotherapy, their good cells and bad cells are getting targeted by the chemotherapy. But if you could provide oxygen, perhaps, to the bad and the good, you would be you would be, whatever. Go watch the video. I think bad cells love sugar. That is true, too. I used to be in pictures with lots of reporters. It was for work. Lots of politicians, too. Not a big deal. Correct. Most folks here would like Truth Stream Media's channel. Awesome. Peroxide is high level oxygen. Man, in high school I used to bleach my hair with peroxide. It wasn't pretty. That wasn't a good idea. Man, kids now have it so easy. We had no idea what we were doing. I didn't know how to do my makeup. I didn't have like access to like cool clothes or hair junks. Like we could not. It's not our fault that we look like that, okay? We didn't have beauty blogs. We didn't have Kardashians. That's probably a good thing. Anyway, my voice is really going, so I probably should scoot, but I shall be back. Thank you guys so much. I heart you all. Very nice people. And I shall be back. Thank you guys. All right, goodbye.